About exactly 1 month ago, we all went to the ballot boxes to elect the people who will govern our cities for the next 4 to 6 years. Our current democratic system is built in such a way that we choose our authorities, but we often don't have a clue how these authorities reach their decisions. And today I would like to inspire you all to get involved in local decision making, and I will try to explain you how you can do that. Because I believe that democracy should be something more continuous, something ongoing. But you might ask yourself the question, why is it important that I get involved? Well, every day, local councillors take decisions that affect your everyday life, be it how you get to work, how your children are educated, the quality of the air you breathe. And that's why it's so important. And that's exactly what I experienced in Brussels 3 years ago. I lived in a neighborhood and I had many ideas on how to make my neighborhood greener. But I found it very hard to communicate these ideas to my local government. Today you can already participate in local decision making, but the current ways are just not fit to the 21st century. Very few of us will want to attend a town hall meeting on a Tuesday evening after a long day of work. So in an age where all of us are using technologies to participate in every conversation globally, we don't need to attend these town hall meetings anymore. We can just use our smartphones. And the technologies we use every day, the devices that we use every day, can help us to bridge that gap between local governments and citizens. So if we think about democracy and technology, we often come up with ideas like online voting or online petitions. And that's definitely a good thing. But democracy or digital democracy shouldn't be reduced to the total sum of votes. Local policy making should be about being inclusive, involving as many people as possible, also the minorities. So that's why it's so important that the technologies we build are inclusive and built for dialogue, and that we listen to other people's opinions. Today we can kind of speak of some kind of momentum in participatory democracy. Never have politicians been so aware of its value. They've never felt the need so much to connect with the people they govern. For example, if we look at the topic of citizen participation, it was almost mentioned in the program of every local political party. And also in many local coalition agreements, it's mentioned. So now is actually the time to move from talking to action. The cities, the politicians, they need to act, but we also need to act. Because often we complain about the decisions politicians take, but we actually have the power to force these politicians to listen to us before these decisions are taken. And you can do that in more top-down processes, where the city decides on which topics they want to consult you, which is good, of course. But you can also do it more bottom-up, really about the topics that matter to you, your fields of interest. So you need to realize that you as a citizen, you can put something on the official agenda. And so that's why it's important to institutionalize citizen participation in the governance of our cities. And that's why we need to define clear rules of the game. And of course we will fail. But if we don't try, we'll not succeed either. So that's why 3 years ago, my co-founders and I, we exactly took up that challenge and we built our digital democracy platform. Over the course of 3 years, we've worked with more than 80 governments in eight countries. And we've built many great cases. And today I'd like to highlight 3 cases that will show you how we try to bridge that gap between local governments and cities and their citizens. First of all, a case that's probably some of you might know because it exactly happened in this city. About 2 years ago, the city of Liège decided to rethink their strategic plans, to dream together with citizens, to involve as many citizens as possible in their strategic plan. They asked the citizens to reinvent the city, That's also why the project was called Réinventons Liège. And so in the first phase, they asked the citizens to come up with ideas and projects. So on every possible topic, citizens could post ideas. And many different channels were used. Citizens could go to town hall meetings, they could post their ideas on paper, or they could go to our online platform. And in total, we gathered more than 1,000 ideas. Then during a second phase, we tried to cluster all these ideas, and we asked citizens to prioritize these projects together with us. And during this phase, more than 20,000 citizens voted more than 100,000 times on all these projects. And now we see that out of this process, 77 projects have been created that will define the future of Liège together with their citizens. So this is a great example to show how you can actually dream together, how you can be hopeful and share dreams on how the city should look like in a few years. The second example is a bit kind of a smaller city close by called Marche-en-Famenne with around 17,000 inhabitants. And the beginning of this year, the city wanted to regenerate the local square. It's a very important public space because if you have a small city, these kind of squares are the places where all people meet and where they interact with one another. And they took a bit of a different approach. They first asked architects to come up with designs for this specific square, and then the citizens could give feedback on these designs. So be it voting, be it commenting. And it was a huge success. We almost reached 50% of the population. And the good thing here was that we saw diversity in opinions. So you clearly saw, for instance, that elderly people wanted more parking spaces and more benches, whereas younger people wanted more sports facilities, such as skating. And of course, politicians, they might have these feelings already, these gut feelings that these different groups might think differently, but now they have the data in their hands. They can take decisions data-driven. The next phase and the last phase was then analyzing all this input and giving it back to the architects. So they could redevelop their designs, changing depending on the input of the citizens. So now when the square will be redeveloped and done, every citizen might cross this square every day, and they might feel that they too made this square. It might not have been their specific idea or their specific design, but they felt that their voice was heard. And then the third example is the city of Vancouver, a big city in Canada that's facing many challenges. And one of these challenges is a housing crisis. The prices for houses are going up, and so there's not a lot of affordable housing. What the city decided there is that they would try to use the wisdom of the crowd in order to solve these challenges. So what they did is they asked the citizens two questions. Where should we invest in affordable housing and how? And for the how part, 3 specific ideas came out. First, we'd like to have combined types of housing. So for instance, elderly people with younger people. We want to do something about all these homeless people. We really want to make a plan in order to help these people. And then thirdly was a more liberal proposal of kind of repaying the tax. Because the thing was that they charged the tax, an empty homes tax, to the landowners in order to have more budget for these affordable housing solutions. So Vancouver is a great example of tapping into the wisdom of your crowd, crowdsourcing ideas of your citizens, because you know that every citizen that's living in your city has a specific expertise or a specific experience. So it's very important to use that experience. So I hope that these 3 examples have shown you that it's possible to transform our political system. But to do so, we need to use the tools that internet is offering us. You as a citizen, you need to realize that you too can have your say. You have the power. And with a small action of civic engagement, you can have a huge impact on your community. So tonight when you go home, I'd love that you can reflect on how you would like to see your neighborhood differently and which type of expertise or experience your community could benefit from. Because it's only together that we can shape our democracies for the digital age. Thank you very much.